Hello MotoGP fans. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Paolo Simoncelli, owner of SIC 58 and a longtime Paddock voice, has laid a sharp charge at the heart of Ducati's 2025 drama. He says Pecco Bagnaia underestimated Marc Márquez because of the counsel coming from Valentino Rossi's circle. The claim touches on team dynamics, personality, and the fine margins that separate champions from challengers. Manuel Poggiali has offered one of the clearest internal assessments yet of Ducati's 2025 season. Speaking after a year working closely with both Marc Márquez and Pecco Bagnaia, the former world champion delivered a sober verdict: Ducati won the title, but with Bagnaia, time slipped away. The 2026 MotoGP season calendar is out, from team presentations in January to preseason tests and a 22-race world tour that now includes Brazil. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Simoncelli doesn't couch his view in subtlety. He directly pins part of Bagnaia's struggle on the influence of the VR46 group. The implication is that inside advice, echo chambers and perhaps reassurance after near misses in 2024 left Bagnaia mentally underprepared for the unprecedented challenge of Márquez as a factory teammate. That's a powerful claim because it shifts some responsibility away from machinery or bad luck and onto the psychological framework surrounding a rider. Pecco comes from Valentino Rossi's group, and after hearing everything they say in that group, he underestimated Márquez. Quote from Paolo Simoncelli. If true, Simoncelli argues, the group's messaging created expectations that were ill-matched to the reality of facing a rider of Márquez's caliber inside the same garage. Simoncelli frames Bagnaia's 2024 near title as a dangerous pivot point. Winning 11 races but losing the championship taught Bagnaia a lesson that, in Simoncelli's view, was misread. The safe plan became, don't crash, rather than, raise the bar. That conservative psychological posture, fine in some contexts, left Bagnaia vulnerably reactive when confronted with Márquez's relentless pace and adaptability. The result was not a single technical failure but a season-long crisis of confidence and response. He thought, all I have to do is crash less. That mindset, Simoncelli suggests, made Bagnaia less prepared to match Márquez's aggression and inventive approach on and off the bike. The blunt reality Simoncelli stresses is that Marc Márquez wasn't merely fast, he was a different kind of competitor inside Ducati. Where Bagnaia's season collapsed into inconsistency, Márquez turned the same environment into dominance. Simoncelli's language is stark because the sporting contrast was stark, one rider adapting and squeezing performance from a tricky package, the other losing his way. That gap, he insists, is what exposed the limits of advice and preparation. Marc is a beast on the track, and that threw him into a crisis. In short, the opponent mattered as much as the bike, and Márquez's presence reshaped the internal dynamics of Ducati's championship fight. The piece ends on a more personal note. Simoncelli, whose late son Marco is a Paddock legend, draws a human parallel between Márquez's style and Marco's fighting spirit. That comparison softens the critique. There's admiration mixed with blunt diagnosis. Simoncelli's final images are of two riders who never give up, and of the bittersweet feeling of watching an old friend or rival flourish in a moment that also highlights a colleague's decline. I always liked him. He rides and thinks like my son. He never gives up and always tries. That comment reveals why Simoncelli's critique is not purely tactical, it's personal, colored by the memory of his son and by his sense of what a true competitor looks like. Paolo Simoncelli's words are a mix of accusation, analysis, and nostalgia. He blames a supportive, but potentially blinding, inner circle for a misread on Marc Márquez, traces how that misread shaped Bagnaia's season, and closes with a reminder that sport is human as well as technical. Whether you accept the critique or see it as Paddock noise, the episode underlines a truth. In a team as complex and high-pressure as Ducati, psychology and counsel can be as decisive as horsepower. Poggiali's presence inside Ducati did not come by chance. A mid-season phone call from Gigi D'Allegna marked his return to the highest level of MotoGP involvement, a decision rooted as much in trust as ambition. For Poggiali, accepting the role was about continuity, belief, and stepping back into a Paddock environment that shaped his entire life. His move underlined Ducati's intent to strengthen its human structure as much as its technical one. "I received a call from Gigi at Ducati factory, and I think I made the decision very quickly." That call symbolized confidence, a recognition that Ducati believed it was on the right path and wanted the right people around its riders. Before fully committing to the Lenovo project, Poggiali made sure to acknowledge the team that helped bring him back into racing life. Gresini was not just a stepping stone but a place of belonging, mentorship, and renewed passion. This sense of loyalty explains why Ducati's offer carried such emotional weight. It was not just an upgrade, but a validation of his work and values. Gigi's call was more than welcome, it was also a confirmation. For Poggiali, the move wasn't about leaving something behind, it was about building on it with a clear objective: fighting for titles. Poggiali draws a sharp contrast between seasons. In 2024, Bagnaia and his team operated at an almost flawless level, making so few mistakes that the smallest errors ended up defining the championship outcome. That level of precision set a benchmark, one that made the struggles of 2025 feel heavier, not because of failure, but because of how high expectations had become. In 2024, Pecco and I had what I would call an extraordinary season. We made very few mistakes. Against that backdrop, 2025 was always going to be judged harshly, even with a Ducati rider winning the title. Inside Ducati, 2025 was emotionally complex. Marc Márquez's championship carried deep meaning, a story of resilience and comeback that resonated throughout the garage. At the same time, Bagnaia's campaign never aligned with expectations. Poggiali's tone is neither critical nor dismissive, instead, it is realistic, acknowledging both success and underperformance within the same structure. "It hasn't been a season in line with expectations or ambitions." Ducati, he insists, still has two riders capable of dominating weekends. The problem was never potential, but execution. Poggiali's final message is one of perspective. In racing, seasons are chapters, not verdicts. Ducati may have fallen short with Bagnaia in 2025, but the opportunity to reset, adapt, and return stronger remains firmly in place. The language he uses is strikingly military: a lost year, a lost battle, but the underlying tone is forward-looking, focused on recovery rather than regret. "We've lost a battle, we've lost a year with Pecco." For Ducati, 2026 now becomes the season of response, ensuring both riders are given the conditions to fight at the front again. Manuel Poggiali's assessment strips away excuses. Ducati succeeded, but not across the board. Marc Márquez's title stands tall, yet Bagnaia's season is filed as time lost, not talent lost. The message from inside the factory is clear: the foundation remains strong, the lessons are learned, and the expectation for 2026 is nothing less than a full-scale comeback. The launch window is tightly packed and matters more than ever. Team presentations are where liveries, rider pairings, and early technical messaging are revealed. Highlights include Pramac on January 13th, VR46 in Rome on January 14th, Aprilia in Milan on January 15th, Ducati's traditional Madonna di Campiglio show on January 19th, and Yamaha's Jakarta unveiling on January 21st. The latter especially significant as Yamaha will present its new V4. These events set the narrative and give fans a first glimpse of which teams believe they've made the biggest winter gains. Mark your calendars. The first 2 weeks of January will set expectations long before the bikes hit Sepang. Presentations are theater. Sepang and Buram are the testbed. The shakedown at Sepang runs January 29th to 31st, test riders and rookies, followed by the official Sepang test February 3rd to 5th, and finishing the winter program with Buram tests on February 21st to 22nd. That sequence compresses headline reveals into verifiable performance, reliability checks, early lap time signs, and how the new Yamaha V4 or any late upgrades behave under race conditions. If a team's launch looks brilliant on stage but flat on the timing screens, Sepang is where reality bites. The on-track calendar itself changes the competitive map. The season now begins in Thailand on February 28 to March 1, and notably the Brazilian Grand Prix, Goiânia, replaces Termas de Rio Hondo's Argentine round. A new venue changes logistics, track characteristics, and even early season championship dynamics. Some teams historically suit certain circuits, so the swap could advantage different manufacturers and riders. New tracks mean new learning curves. Expect the early standings to reflect which teams adapt quickest to Goiânia. 2 context points matter as you evaluate the schedule. First, the 2026 engine freeze means most manufacturers will be refining existing concepts while preparing for the 2027 rule reset, so winter gains will be about setup, electronics, and chassis tuning more than wholesale engine changes. Second, Yamaha's V4 reveal and how quickly its packages translate to lap time at Sepang and Buram will be one of the major storylines early in the year. Track performance, not stagecraft, will determine early momentum. Watch Sepang and Buram for the first real verdicts. The 2026 calendar delivers a fast-moving winter, concentrated launches in mid-January, Sepang's shakedown and tests by early February, Buram tests later in the month, then the season opener in Thailand and the new Brazilian round. The headline questions are clear. How will Yamaha's V4 fare? Which teams extract gains under an engine freeze? And who adapts quickest to Goiânia? The curtain rises fast. Sepang will tell us which season narratives are real. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!